A quiet yet potent force lurks within the recesses of the human psyche, eroding self-worth, warping perceptions of personal value, and setting the unseen boundaries of what one deems deserving of life, expression, or emotion. This force doesn't assert itself through physical aggression, but rather through insidious psychological means. It is known as shame. This emotion is profoundly misunderstood and deeply ingrained, acting as an emotional leech that thrives on silence, secrecy, and self-blame. While guilt is related to a specific action, I did something wrong, shame penetrates deeper, attacking the very core of one's identity with the belief that I am something wrong. This subtle yet significant distinction marks the immense destructive capacity of shame. From the tender stages of childhood, shame begins to take shape subtly. It manifests in the disapproving looks from adults, harsh comparisons to siblings, and quiet criticisms about one's body, behavior, or personality. Children, lacking the tools to challenge these judgments, internalize the belief that they are inherently flawed, not just in their actions, but in their very being. This begins a process of internal division. To gain acceptance, they conceal parts of themselves. To be loved, they conform to what others expect. Authenticity is sacrificed for approval. As time passes, these internalized messages morph into a constant inner critic that scrutinizes every action, thought, and impulse with suspicion. This is why many adults find themselves imprisoned within their own minds, policing their desires, suppressing their emotions, and shunning vulnerability. They have been conditioned to believe that revealing their true selves would render them unworthy of love, respect, or acceptance. Thus, shame transforms into a mechanism of control, a psychological tool that inhibits true freedom. Individuals reshape themselves, conceal their true natures, and adapt, not out of desire, but necessity. As this behavior persists unchallenged, it becomes entangled with their identity, leading them to accept feelings of inferiority, inadequacy, and defectiveness as truth. This video aims to dismantle that cycle, exposing the mechanisms of shame to demonstrate that it is not an inherent truth, but a conditioned response cultivated by societal judgment. Understanding the origins of shame, its impact, and crucially, how to disarm it, represents a profoundly liberating step. This is what we will explore today. To grasp the full destructive impact of shame, it's crucial to distinguish it from guilt, an emotion it is often mistaken for. While both stem from feelings of inadequacy or wrongdoing, they affect the psyche on very different levels and have distinct consequences on emotional development. Guilt is a healthy emotional response that signals a violation of personal values or harm to another, prompting repair and growth. It acts like a traffic signal, indicating a need for correction without compromising our core identity. The message of guilt is, you did something wrong, now rectify it. Shame, however, crosses into the realm of identity. It doesn't merely suggest that you did something bad, it declares that you are bad. This critical difference has devastating effects. While guilt maintains dignity, shame annihilates it. It quietly eats away at self-esteem, distorts self-perception, and interprets every error, rejection, or flaw as proof of fundamental unworthiness. Those dominated by shame don't just recognize a mistake, they see themselves as the mistake. When this becomes a chronic state, it not only stifles genuine self-expression, but also forms the foundation of a toxic identity. From this toxic soil, sprout patterns of extreme perfectionism, debilitating procrastination, an overwhelming need to please, and even self-destructive behaviors, all attempts to compensate for or conceal perceived deep-seated flaws. Shame is silent, yet relentless. Unlike guilt, which can be processed through rational thought, shame infiltrates the body, emotional memory, and even subconscious behaviors. It manifests in averted gazes, stiff postures, and difficulties in self-expression, self-acceptance, and self-love. More dangerously, it often goes unrecognized because it has become so integrated into our being. But where does this pervasive shame originate? How does it embed itself so deeply and early in the psyche? In the next section, we delve into the roots of shame, uncovering how from childhood we are conditioned to believe that being ourselves is inherently wrong. If you find this content resonant, please subscribe to the channel. Your support is appreciated. Shame is not innate. It is built, conditioned, and passed on. No child is born believing they are fundamentally flawed. Instead, humans naturally embody authenticity, expressing desires, emotions, and impulses freely and without fear. Yet this unguarded state is often suppressed early on, typically by those meant to foster and protect our authenticity: parents, caregivers, teachers, and society at large. It begins with seemingly innocuous actions: a disapproving look when a child shows emotion, a harsh comparison to a sibling, an impatient retort to a question, or an excessive punishment for a simple act of exploration. These moments teach a child a perilous lesson. Being oneself leads to punishment, expressing feelings leads to rejection, and revealing one's true self precludes love. This internalization is deeply traumatic, even without overt aggression. Out of a need for belonging and survival, children learn to modify their behavior to meet adult expectations. They suppress undesirable emotions like anger, sadness, or frustration. They learn that vulnerability is weakness and spontaneity is inappropriate. Thus, the first psychological split occurs. The authentic self is hidden, and a false self is constructed. An identity shaped not by who the person truly is, but by what they believe they need to be to gain acceptance. John Bradshaw, in his seminal work, Healing the Shame That Binds You, describes this false self as a means of psychic survival. Individuals alienate themselves from their essence to avoid the pain of rejection. But this alienation comes at a steep cost. It creates an internal void, a perpetual sense of inadequacy, and an unending search for external validation. Over time, this pattern becomes automatic. The adult, once a child, learns to censor their thoughts and emotions before they even express them. They forget who they were before they adapted, and tragically, they begin to judge and reject others with the same severity they themselves faced. Internalized shame not only confines us, but also becomes a pattern we unknowingly perpetuate in relationships, parenting, and professional settings. It is a self-reinforcing cycle. To break free, we must understand how this implanted shame morphs into an internal surveillance system, a psychological mechanism that stifles our freedom and authenticity. In the next section, we explore how shame evolves into a system of constant self-monitoring, acting as if an invisible judge is perpetually assessing every gesture, thought, and choice. Once established, shame is no longer merely a reactive emotion, but becomes a pervasive system of psychic surveillance. It transforms into a constant, invisible presence, an internal judge that accompanies every thought, gesture, and impulse. And most insidiously, This judge is not external. It resides within us. This internal surveillance is so subtle and ingrained that most individuals are unaware they are under their own watchful eye. It's that inner voice that cautions, "Don't talk too much. Don't show that. That's ridiculous. No one will take you seriously." It's the discomfort that emerges when you express your true self, followed by a rush of embarrassment, as if you've committed a crime by being genuine. It's the relentless self-censorship, the craving for approval, the irrational fear of rejection. This internal judge, shaped by childhood experiences and reinforced throughout life, becomes a permanent, punitive force. It doesn't guide, it condemns. It doesn't correct wisely, it humiliates. And as it becomes more internalized, the individual starts confusing this voice with their own conscience. But it is not conscience, it is conditioning. It is not prudence, it is fear masquerading as reason. This system of surveillance acts like a prison without walls, preventing individuals from experiencing the freedom of being themselves. Desires are suppressed, ideas are filtered, and spontaneity is sacrificed. Individuals live in a state of constant self-monitoring, anticipating judgments and avoiding situations that might expose them to the scrutiny of others. But the real issue is not the scrutiny of others. It's the internalized gaze that continuously triggers the alarm of shame. Michel Foucault, in his analysis of power and social control mechanisms, explains how the vigilant gaze becomes more effective when internalized by the individual. Power then no longer needs to be exerted from the outside. It becomes automated, naturalized, internalized. Shame operates in precisely this manner. It is the psychological mechanism that ensures you remain constrained, always doubting your worth and your place in the world. But remember, you have a problem, shame, but it does not define you. Practicing self-compassion means allowing yourself to make mistakes without descending into self-destruction. It involves understanding that failure is a part of the human experience and that no genuine path is devoid of missteps. It's about beginning to treat yourself as you would a wounded child, with firmness yet gentleness, with responsibility yet also with love. And slowly, the cycle starts to break. Shame, once absolute, begins to lose its grip. It doesn't vanish overnight, but its hold over your identity starts to wane. And that is what true freedom feels like. However, the journey doesn't end here. As we've mentioned, shame thrives in darkness. To truly diminish its power, it must be brought into the light of awareness. In the final section, we'll explore how exposing shame to the conscious mind radically alters its influence and unveils a new path, one of living with authenticity, bravery, and truth. Shame is a psychological parasite that only survives in environments of darkness, silence, and secrecy. It feeds on the unspoken, on the concealed, on what you attempt to erase within yourself. But when you dare to confront it, to name it, to share your story, even if only with yourself, something remarkable occurs. Shame begins to lose its hold. Not because it disappears entirely. It will still attempt to surface, whispering old falsehoods in moments of vulnerability. But now, you recognize that this voice is not yours. This pain does not define your worth. This prison is not eternal. Once illuminated by awareness, shame starts to dissolve. It was never a truth, merely a construct, a lie repeated so often it seemed real. The key to living an authentic and courageous life isn't in striving for perfection, but in allowing yourself to be human, to err, to feel, to change your mind, to be vulnerable, to fail, and to continue loving yourself through it all. Shame tries to convince you that there is something within you that, if revealed, would make you unlovable. The truth is the exact opposite. It is in your moments of truthful exposure that real love, including self-love, becomes possible. At this moment, you may be carrying old burdens, phrases you heard in childhood, looks that marked you, experiences that left scars. But now you have tools, now you have language, now you know where to look. And when you see clearly, you are no longer trapped. You no longer need to hide. You no longer need to conform. You no longer need to apologize for existing. You are not your trauma. You are not your failures. You are not the distorted image someone once projected onto you. You are a complete, worthy, capable being. And from this point forward, every step you take toward your truth will strike a blow against that internal system that tried to keep you small. If this video resonated with you, please comment below. I choose to live with truth. Your vulnerability can inspire others who are still silent. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, share it. Spread this light. And remember, keep watching. The next video is crucial for your journey. You've already started this process. Don't stop now. Shame will never control you again. Never again.